have facing you when you're looking at these type of projects. So we really looked at this closely, and we felt strong that this was the way to go. I may also say that the incremental debt service is only $214,000 for the next 4 years. After that, we're freeing up $2.2 million, 2.4, 2.7, 2.8, 3.4, and that's because we have aggressively paid down debt and we've shortened the term. We can certainly go 25, 30 years. It's been suggested to me years ago to do that by certain members of the council, not here, nobody here, but we've not chosen to do that. So that's why we want to go there.
And I would just like to add one other thing that I think is somewhat time sensitive is everything is very inexpensive right now. I mean, we're experiencing a great time to do capital projects because the prices are lower. And a building project means work. It means people are working, which is always a good thing. So we're stimulating our local economy, and that's a good thing as well now. Okay, thank you.
Let me just make a comment before I call the roll. I agree with many of the comments made by my colleagues. Every 2 years we have to take out, the city takes out a major non-capital utility bond, really to do major items rather than putting that in the general fund where that involves tax increases of cents. And I think it's very fair to say when you look at this, the administration did lessen the amount, and you have two large items here, a new 911 upgrade of $1.8 million, and something I have pushed for over 10 years, and I feel very strongly about it. I think the administration deserves credit that finally, after 10 years of talk, we finally have it in this budget, and that's a new EMS facility. If you drive by Stephenville Boulevard, where our EMS facility is, it's an antiquated building. It's a terrible facility for our paramedics, and we have an outstanding EMS crew. This project, this facility is long overdue as far as I'm concerned. I'm very happy to see that we're finally moving forward on it. I think it's fair to say, too, that this amount is less than our last two previous bonds, and the amount of debt starting quite a few years ago has been aggressively, we've been trying to aggressively pay as much debt as possible to bring it down on the principal and the interest side. And as Mr. Reichert indicated, I think Mr. Reynolds, we used to take bonds out for 20, 25 years with the ability to recall them, we can cash them in and refinance, but now we're taking bonds out for a very short period of time, trying to deal with the situation now rather than looking out 20 or 25 years. But I think when you look at this, the city has to move forward. We have to make some capital improvements. This doesn't even address, to be very candid with you, the facility out on Rogers Street, which is long past its due point to be fixed. I mean, you drive by that, by Northeast Little League, that facility, in my opinion, is in poor shape. So I think we're dealing with two very large items here. 911 upgrade, which is a necessity, number one, and a new EMS facility. Because if you look at the number of paramedics that we've had in the last 10 years, we've doubled the number of paramedics. We have 3 teams on day shift now, 2 teams on night shift. That was not the case even 5 years ago. And we do respond. Bethlehem paramedics respond to 95, 96% of all the calls. And that's exactly what St. Luke's and Lehigh Valley Hospital want. They don't want us to go below 95%. And we've been 95% above. But this facility, as far as I'm concerned, is long overdue. This is the first time in 10 years of discussions that it's finally on paper that we're going to move forward on. And I've fought for this for a long time. I want to commend the administration that actually now we have it in this bond. And with that, I'm going to support it. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Nay.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchez.
Aye.
6-4 passes.
Thank you. Resolution 11A has been withdrawn. Under accepted under new business, Mr. Mauer. We'll move to 11B, authorize the utility relocation reimbursement agreement for PennDOT Route 412 11B.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that in accordance with the requirements of PennDOT's design manual,
the city authorizes the submission of requests to PennDOT to provide 50% reimbursement to the city for costs incurred in relocating water and sewer sanitary facilities located in the public right-of-way and affected by the Route 412 Section 1 project. The mayor is authorized to execute and sign the agreements. Resolution 11B is sponsored by David DiGiacinto and Gordon Mauer.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchess.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
Chair will accept the motion from Mr. Reynolds and second by Mr. Evans to consider resolutions 11C to 11H as a group. I ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion and to read the resolutions C through H.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchess.
Aye.
All are certificates of appropriateness under the provisions of the Act of the Pennsylvania Legislature and Bethlehem Ordinance. 11C, a proposal to install a masonry wall between two existing garages at 47 East Market Street and a wooden gate between the garage and a fence. 11D, to remove a non-historic chimney extension on the north chimney and to cap it to match the southern chimney at 501 Main Street. 11E, to install two 3-inch PVC vents for a high-efficiency gas furnace at 402 North New Street. 11F, to install a shed roof and metal guardrail at the rear entry to the Sunday School at 44 East Market Street. 11G, to replace windows on the side and rear and sash only on the 2-story front section, to install new lighting signage and ADA ramp with rails, and to extend the fire escape at 524 North New Street. 11H, to install masonry pavers and landscape with native plants in the north courtyard at the Sun Inn at 564 Main Street. The resolutions are sponsored by Karen Dolan and Gordon Mauer.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Belinsky.
Aye.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Mauer.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchess.
Aye.
7-0 they all pass.
Thank you. 11I, transfer funds, non-utility capital budget, ice rink repairs and renovations. I ask the clerk to please read resolution 11I.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bethlehem that $540,000 in the non-utility capital budget be transferred as follows for repair work and renovations to the ice rink. $300,000 from the Main Street angled parking account to ice rink repairs, $75,000 from Sand Island improvements, and $165,000 from facility capital improvements to ice rink renovations. Sponsored by Eric Evans and David DiGiacinto.
Comments? We do have an amendment to resolution 11I, which is sponsored by Mr. DiGiacinto and seconded by Mr. Evans. And I will ask the clerk to read the amendment to resolution 11I, and then call the roll on the amendment, and then we'll have discussion on it.
That the following in resolution 11I that reads as follows, and that is the total amount of $540,000 to be transferred for the repair work and renovations to the ice rink, with $300,000 of that from the Main Street angled parking is amended to read a total of $480,000 to be transferred for the repair work and renovations to the ice rink, with $240,000 to come from the Main Street angled parking account to ice rink repairs.
Discussion? Mr. DiGiacinto?
Go ahead, Lynn.
I was just going to ask you a question. I think Councilman Dolan may have overestimated by using the word thunder before, but I was just, I was under the impression that when we had moved that $75,000 from CDBG into unprogrammed funds, and when we had discussed the possibility of how much money that project would spend, how much that potential project would cost, I thought that part of the reason why we had moved the $75,000 from CDBG to unprogrammed funds was to leave that as a possibility of money that we would spend for the potential of the South Main Street parking situation. And I was just going to ask, about that. I was going to ask Mr. DiGiacinto.
Mr. DiGiacinto?
Yeah.
No, that was not my intent, just to hold it there. My intent was to, in fact, I stated this in the finance committee meeting, that we would hold 60,000 back. I wrote a memo to that effect. I believe I sent one to the administration on requesting that. But since the money was already there slated for this Main Street parking, I thought it would be simpler and the right thing to do to keep it there and not transfer it out. We still don't know what the ice rink is going to cost, right? We still don't know what South Main Street parking is going to cost. Again, I'll repeat what I said earlier. This was a very hot topic 5-6 weeks ago, and then it was taken off the table for various reasons. I don't think the South Main Street parking issue has gone away. I think there's other people on council here who support the South Main Street parking, the South Main Street parking project, and quite frankly, I would have looked at the 75 grand of CDBG funds that are now in unprogrammed spending to be considered for some of the other projects that Mr. Haynes was talking about.
Mr. Reynolds?
So then, just so I have this clear, so you do think that there's, and just so I get this straight, so you do think there's the potential to spend both the 75,000 in CDBG and the 60,000?
Yes, I do believe there's that potential.
Okay. Can I make a comment now?
Right.
I think that situation, when this had first been brought up, the idea of spending the money down there at the potential of putting the spots there on the bridge, I do remember the number being lower, and now I understand that part of the reason why is because the intention would be to use some of this money for some of those other improvements. I'm interested to hear what my colleagues say. My idea before hearing them is that I think that it's I would have to think pretty hard about whether or not we should spend that amount of money. I think that your idea for the parking on the bridge there is one that should definitely be considered. But at the same time, I think to go beyond that, to ask that we withhold this money from going to the ice rink, is one that I think I would move forward with a lot of trepidation about, just because I think that the ice rink is something that we need to do now. I'm pretty confident about the amount of money that that's been discussed for those ice rink repairs, and we still would have the money there if we need to, if down the road we decided to do the parking that I know many people have thought about. I think the money would still be there, but I would prefer my colleagues to hear what they have to say.